Hey my friends, it's good to see you again. So today we're in downtown Mexico City, or El Centro. That's the Bellas Artes and Torre Latino. Or is it Torre Latina? Here is Parque Alameda. There's an older church that recently just had a fire. It's amazing to think that we live in the middle of things that were built in the 1700s. We're going to be walking into El Centro, and specifically, we're going to be walking the exact same route today from Parque Alameda, which was the outside of Mexico City, into where one of the most famous battles of all time occurred. It was the night where Cortez was escaping after murdering many people inside of their temples. The Meshico were going in the direction of our walk. They were enraged by the news that their priestly and government officials had been murdered in their temple. And the conquistadors, Cortez's people and the indigenous with them, would be coming against us. There's just one small street. It's the only way out of the city. And it was here that one of the great battles of all time occurred. The building right here is the old post office. Well, it's still a post office. We should do a walk here sometime. All by itself, it's beautiful. This was the mail center from probably the 1600s on. Perdón, Calle Tacuba? Muchísimas gracias. Wanted to make sure. So originally this was a hospital. So this is the main part of the walk. This is one of the most historic places you can walk, at least in all of the Americas, and if not, the whole world. This whole area is buildings built in 16, 17, 1800s.
Se lo regalo la plaza. Se lo regala Oscar de la plaza.
When I did this walk, this is one of the few times where I'll do a walk and then not post it right away. This was right after the feminist marches in downtown Mexico City. So you'll see some of these places are boarded up and have been attacked with paint. This statue here, I believe, used to be on Paseo de Reforma, and then they moved it here in front of another beautiful museum, a National Art Museum. Mexico City has one of the richest cultures of museums of anywhere in the world. So the issue of controversy would be these marches here. I think for a lot of us, especially us men, we can feel conflicted because I consider myself a feminist in support of equal rights. And at the same time, the violence of these protests seem to bother me. And again, I'm not perfect and I'm not condemning anybody, but it concerns me. So I'm open to a conversation about that. But, you know, obviously the graffiti that says no is no, I fully agree with. But they've destroyed monuments, attacked innocent people on the streets, and I'm confused about it. Is Coato? I believe this museum is in honor of the great military leaders of Mexico's history, from the Meshico, the Aztecs, to the Spanish, and now the Mexicanos. By the way, I did not add this music. This is someone playing music here on the street. Just doing that stereotypical Mexican classical music. So let me set the scene for why this is such an amazing walk for those of us who love history. This is the oldest street in the Americas. At the time of the Meshico, this exact same direction was the road, one of the four main causeways or roads that came out of Tenochtitlan, and was the site of the famous and absolutely horrendous battle when Cortez was trying to escape. So he would be coming from the opposite direction, and the Mexica were coming to destroy the the fleeing Spanish conquistadors. The battle started when the Spanish attacked the Mexica in the sacred Templo Mayor and killed everybody. It's one of the worst massacres in the entire episode between Cortez and the Mexica. I heard it rumored once that this coffee shop is where Fidel Castro and Che Guevara met for the very first time. But back to the reason why for me this is such a powerful walk. To think of that night. So somehow the world has changed forever for the Mexica. And there's a lot of unease with Cortez. Cortez and his conquistadors, as well as the tribes that were surrounding the Mexica, and they were tired of the Mexica's tax system. Some people believe that the human sacrifices that were being done down this street were often with people from invaded and conquered tribes surrounding Mexico City, like Texcalga and other areas. So when the conquistadors, when they attacked the worshippers, which were the men of high class in the city, and they use their swords and the accounts, there's historical accounts that are just hard to even read or to imagine. It set off a firestorm of such incredible fury from the Mexica that all of them came from their homes, which were maybe outside of this area, and attacked. And there was only one way out for Cortez. I read one account that there was no military strategy, and the Mexica fired so many arrows that it was like rain coming down on Cortez and his troops. It's believed that it was from this street that Cortez had stolen some gold, probably a lot of it. The early accounts of the Spanish is that Cortez and his people were obsessed with gold. Well, he left, and during this battle it was so violent that it's believed that he threw, or people that he were with, they jumped off this causeway and they drowned, refusing to let go of their gold. And there's still hundreds of millions of dollars worth of gold right underneath this street. It's one of the rumors. Coming up, the Museum of the Inquisition. Always a comfortable place for a non-Catholic to be. They really do show you the whole history of like the torture and everything. And this creates some of the, I think the magic of Mexico is that now we could enjoy this street without ever knowing the history. It's shops and McDonald's and people selling things on the street and people putting, delivery bicycle guys, and maybe you'll get your perfume from Frachet. And yet we're also standing on one of the most amazing places in history. And if there's one gift that Mexico has, and it has many, but if there is only one, the ability to keep building on top of former disasters is one of them. Life goes on. It's one of the great wisdoms of the Mexican culture. After this battle, the Meshico were still in charge of their culture. Cortez had escaped with the gold and barely survived. He was then, I believe, arrested and taken to a tree that I believe is called the Triste Noche, or the night that Cortez cried. He had been through this enormous battle. He had not taken over Tenochtitlan, and he had one thing going for him. The guy who makes ships survived this battle on Calle Tacuba. As Cortez leaves Mexico, maybe he escaped, a mysterious disease begins to take over this part of the city. The Mexica have gotten rid of Cortez, but then the disease takes 80% of the population lives. Remember that this area here, Tenochtitlan, at that time was larger and cleaner than London. When Cortez returns, the city is in the middle or at the very end of this devastating disease. And he blocks the city off, because remember, this area was a lake, so he puts ships around the causeways, cuts off the food and supplies and the water, and the great empire of Tenochtitlan falls. Had they stopped Cortez on the street, Tenochtitlan continues. Where we're standing right now, we're almost to the end of the street, is where all the pyramids of the Meshico were. This church here has been here since, I believe, the 1600s or 1570s, 1630. It was built here after the Spanish had destroyed the pyramids of the Mexica and then took the stones of the pyramids and built that church. I like to look this way to think about running from this spot. The tension, the fear of that moment, of that day.
Allá como dicen, ya las ves todas arregladas, ya todo. Por acá verlas.
You can hear that they still have the Aztec horns and death whistles in El Centro for many tourists, and they do cleaning of your energy in this area as well. Right here at the fence is the beginning of the Aztec Temples. These were the temples that were destroyed. This was the heart of the Mexica, of their religious beliefs and government beliefs and power. The Spanish so destroyed the Mexica Empire that they did not know where the temple was, or it was covered up with buildings on top of it, I believe until the 1960s. When they started to build for the Olympics, they were building the first subway. They found this temple. They've covered up some of the symbols. You can see it looks like those tarps were over something. Those were tarps over the snakes that were built in the temple. So the year would be 1520, and this would be an entire giant system of pyramids and meeting houses, human sacrifices. This is exactly where the human sacrifices occurred for the Mexica. And right there is where the Spanish attacked the Mexica while they were doing their religious dances. The Mexica had no weapons, and the Spanish took their swords and one by one murdered them. I think it was either 40 people or hundreds were murdered. The Spanish let no one out. And from that exact place became the Battle of Calle Tacuba. Truly spectacular to be able to walk by it from a historic point of view. As we end our walk together, I hope that I did a good job. I hope that I did so in a respectful way, and I hope that you can hear how much this part of this history is important to me and how much I respect it. Without the Mexica, without the indigenous of Tenochtitlan, we would never have all the beauty of Mexico. So I wish you all a really beautiful day. I hope you're blessed, and thank you for spending some time with me.